talk about politics more. The world is dying to know what you think about immigration and foreign policy and such.
Okay.
We're live. Welcome to Money Lap Podcast. I'm Parker Kligerman, driver of the number 48 Spike Light Cooler Chevy, but actually this week, Landon, it's going to be the Motley Crue Chevy, which is kind of cool. Landon Cassill joins me as always. You know that you are a veteran of 560 starts in NASCAR's Top 3 Series, almost 350 in Cup, and you have more than 10 times the Cup starts of me and more than double the Xfinity starts. What was I doing for the last 10 years? I have no idea, to be honest.
It's funny because we've actually been around for the same amount of time. I just been busier than you.
Oh, that was what a bit of shade. Way to throw some shade. I don't know. The only thing that pops in my head was I've obviously broadcasted a metric ton of races. So I don't know where I'd be in the broadcasting side. But still, I don't think I'd be as high as you because you've just done full seasons. I'm hyped, by the way.
I had 3 or 4 years in a row where I ran like 70 races a year. That'll rack up your numbers pretty quick.
That will seriously put you up there. I did 42 last year, which is my most ever, I want to say, and it was a lot. So
I think that 560 starts, though, I appreciate you for bringing that up today. I think 560 starts in NASCAR is probably one of my just proudest accomplishments. And I wish there was 56 wins in there, but 560 starts in NASCAR, that's a lot. That's old hat.
Yeah.
Like, just think about how routine and how comfortable you are, because you have a lot of starts, right? Like, you're no slouch there. You have experience. Think about how comfortable and routine you are with just driver intros and standing for the anthem and like riding on the truck, doing the wave around, coming to pit road, checking your pit road speed, communicate. Like 560 of those, that's a lot. And I love that.
Zone.
It's fun.
That's wild.
Yeah, like,
man.
That part's actually really cool.
That is a ton. And I just don't even know if like people understand that most sports. I mean, that's a gargantuan amount of times that you've been at the biggest show in this whole deal. And I always say, or go back to when Corey LaJoie turned to me when I was making my most recent Cup start in 2022 at Gateway, and my car was a smoldering piece of melted metal there after practice. And he said, "Welcome back to the show." And that's what it is. You've been in the show for a long time. I saw some of those numbers, and I was like, my God, this is wild. I just haven't done as many races as I really thought I had, and I really think it sort of caught up with me that I was doing part-time for so long, and then I sort of forgot, like, oh, yeah, starts. Like, that's a thing. So I'm not even at 100 in Xfinity. Getting there. But I mentioned earlier, I'm hyped, by the way. Last week was our second most downloaded podcast episode ever, and our most downloaded of 2024. I have no idea what we did differently last week that so many people wanted to tune in, but we do appreciate it. So thank you very much. And on today's show, we're going to be talking Zin pouches. So if you're under 18, tune out for that. More specifically, nicotine pouches. And could this be something that many drivers are paying attention to? I don't know. Push to pass, and if you could just use it all the time, how fun would that be? Well, then you'd maybe be Team Penske in IndyCar because they just had a gargantuan penalty set upon them for having push to pass access when they shouldn't have, and the win from St. Pete taken away, which then gives the win to Pato O'Ward and Team McLaren. We'll talk about that. And we have a friend from the IndyCar world coming on to help us dissect that. We're going to dive deep in the Xfinity Series and, of course, the Cup Series. So all that and more here on the Money Lap. But we start landing with the PR Lap. And this is normally when we talk about ourselves and we include my racing. But we're going to do something different going forward. You and I talked about this the other day. We realized that we're the only podcast hosted by NASCAR Xfinity Series drivers. The NASCAR Xfinity Series has a lot of fans, has a lot of people who want to know more about what's happening in the Xfinity Series. So guess what we're going to do? We are going to dedicate a segment every week now solely to the Xfinity Series. That's talking about my races each week and obviously me racing for at the front with the Big Machine Racing, and also all sorts of stories throughout the field in the Xfinity Series. We're going to dive deeper because we think we're the only ones that can possibly do it at this level and the way we're going to do it. So that's our pact. We're going to try it. Therefore, I'm not going to talk about my race from this past weekend here. We're going to do that later in the show when we talk specifically about Xfinity. And, yeah, let us know if you like that. If you don't, in the comments on YouTube, or send us an email at friends@themoneylap.com, or just let us know on social media what you think about that. But that's what we're going to try and do. So we'll see if this works.
Yeah,
game, Landon?
I mean, let's be real. We know a lot about Xfinity, and we can't compete with Denny and Dale on the Cup Series necessarily. Although we are a value add. We're worth listening to.
Yeah.
But those guys, those guys are, we got something they don't have.
Exactly. And something happened last. We do. And we got to lean into our strengths, niche down, as they say sometimes. Xfinity is our niche, and we're happy to have it. It is. We like it. And
we got so much response last week over suggesting that Xfinity should have its own premier race.
We did. Race. That was a big clip. Big clip. To that point, I did discover, before we get into reviews and everything, I've discovered how to do it, by the way.
What's that?
You want to know how? Okay, So everyone was suggesting, obviously, Iowa could be that if the Cup Series wasn't going there, and it was. Montreal was at one point. You had races like the Nashville Superspeedway that were Xfinity only, right? But no, here's what you do. The Dash for Cash, right? It's a 4-week thing spread out over a couple weeks that gives you an extra $100,000 bonus those weeks. What if we took that concept and didn't call it an all-star race, but just made the one that we want to be the marquee biggest event in Xfinity have something like, I don't know, an extra $500,000 prize pool, $400,000 to win the race, $500,000 to win the race. You name it, $250,000 to win the race. I don't know. Spread it out throughout the field. Make it the most lucrative, biggest race in Xfinity with a huge prize to win, but you can't be a Cup driver to come run. And you can't be, there's going to be all sorts of restrictions, so it's got to be dedicated to the stars of the Xfinity Series. That would make a marquee event.
I love it. I think it's an interesting idea. I like the idea of, first of all, props to Xfinity for doing the Dash for Cash.
Yes.
And inspiring, obviously the Truck Series having their own version of it. So I hope they never stop doing that. But I would like to suggest a slight improvement to it. I like the idea of this Dash for Cash focusing on just the winner of the race, right? Like not having necessarily these qualified drivers and then there's a race within a race. I like the idea of just being like, okay, winner of this race, Xfinity race, gets the prize. So whether that's one big race like you're suggesting or, just give it to $100,000 to the winner of any given week. I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah, because I don't think the Dash for Cash gets the play that it deserves because it's a huge deal for us to have that to have that opportunity like I did earlier this year at Martinsville. It's a big deal for the teams. It's a big deal for those drivers, right? That amount of money is huge, but it just doesn't, for some reason, get the play, I feel like, outside of the series. And so I wonder if you could take that same amount keep it going and do a whole nother set for a marquee event or make 2 or 3 major, huge prize pool events. I think that might be a little bit more effective than this whole race within a race, right? So,
well,
I don't know.
Now that we have talked about Xfinity for 10 minutes, we'll talk about Xfinity again later.
Join us. Let's talk reviews. Let's talk some reviews. So we're at 155 Apple reviews on our quest to 200. We got 3 new ones this past week. I mean, we were just all over the internet. People loved us. So this person, Evan12132, says, best NASCAR podcast, 5 stars, the kind of guys you'd love to meet and talk about anything with. Been watching the pod on YouTube since December and will be a weekly listener as long as Parker and Landon keep pumping out content. Don't wait any longer. Start listening to the Money Lap. Thank you. Appreciate that.
First of all, Evan, I like that he started in December, which I think was when we were live, which the live show was my favorite. That was my favorite. I wish we did them all live.
I know, I do too. That was so much fun. We just locking ourselves down and that sort of stuff is tough. We'll try again, yeah. This person, mmarch02, said #1 podcast of the week, 5 stars. Hey guys, my #1 podcast of the week, most insightful explanation of the problems and solutions with the next gen car. Top-notch ad reads. The transitions make me laugh. Can we get some World Superbike news? Let's get Xfinity back to Road America, the best natural road course in the country. 2 brats on me. Oh, love Road America. Wish we were going back there.
Love the nod to a natural road course. Isn't that it's really the best type of race course? Just slap some pavement down in the woods and see what kind of track we can come up with.
Don't design it.
They don't make
the
them
worst
like
thing
they
you
used
can
to.
do. Yeah, well, because the worst thing you can do with a track is whenever someone announces a new track, and the first thing I look for is if they have a designer. And if they have a designer, I just be like, "Oh, that's terrible. It's gonna be awful." So no,
like golf.
Just go plow a track, like a road that connects to itself. There's your track. Good luck, pave it now. Add another review, +1 from Bubba VWAL. Like listening your take on racing across the world. Just started listening recently and going back to the beginning now to catch up. Oh, good luck. That's fun.
Very cool.
Thanks. On Spotify, TJ Parsons, great. I love the content, all forms of motorsports. Appreciate it. On YouTube, we have Tim Hefty 504. Here are my ideas to help you get into the algorithm more. Oh, he's trying to help our YouTube grow. This is nice.
Okay.
1, talk about politics more. The world is dying to know what you think about immigration and foreign policy and such.
Okay.
Absolutely not. You can go to many, many sites that are willing to make you as enraged as you want to be, and including just go on social media, and I'm sure the algorithms will give you what you want in terms of making you just as enraged as possible. That's their hope. 2, create pointless drama with a fellow content creator or driver. Capitalize on the hype from said drama and have a sham boxing match on a YouTuber boxing card that ends in a draw, then squash the beef and collaborate on a line of mass-produced beverages or makeup or headphones. The best YouTubers in the world do this. Wow, that is specific. I love that.
Great advice, honestly.
And, yeah, last one, the Drone Voyager. I'd rather watch the Xfinity Series than Cup and join the podcast. And you know what? You're not alone with that sentiment. I see it often across the internets as of late, which is wild. But this is a trend. 1.6 million people watched Xfinity this past weekend from Talladega. That was up 12% from the year prior out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
People are paying
It's
attention.
like the people are speaking now.
They are.
We've
Yeah.
been saying it for years that Xfinity is a series. We'll talk about Xfinity later.
Let's keep moving on. Just keep pushing it down. Aryton Senna, his personal Honda NSX is on sale for £500,000, which we learned is like $700,000 US dollars, which we learned last week, right? The conversion rate. Is it correct?
It's 620,000 now. Sorry, it's
Oh,
changed
come on!
again.
What is the exchange rate? I can't do it. The exchange rate. Never get it right. If you come to us for any advice other than motorsports, especially when it's financial and regarding the exchange rate, then nope, not happening.
So how many dollars is that?
Did you just miss that whole thing?
Yes, I was typing in the chat.
$620,000.
What? That kind of sounds cheap.
It doesn't sound. Yeah, it doesn't sound crazy at all.
I would have thought something like that. Oh, his personal Honda NSX. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what a non-Aryton Senna Honda NSX is worth. I was thinking it was
Not
like
that
one of his
much.
F1 cars.
No. This is like the road car. Those NSXs.
Okay.
I mean, they're like a cult hero, but they were very underpowered, light, sort of mid-engine sports cars that I think a lot of people expected to.
I love when people say that a car was underpowered. Like, no, man.
Yeah.
So
They're all underpowered.
I pulled up Cars and Bids just to see.
Good point.
It's got about a premium of about $400,000 to
Oh,
have.
wow. Yeah, that's quite.
Yeah.
So
that's
wait a second, Josh. Wait.
Yes.
You went to Cars and Bids
Yes.
as your reference, and not Bring a Trailer.
Sorry, I watched too much Doug DeMuro. What can I say?
I was gonna say you've been inceptioned, so maybe Cars and Bids is the younger one. Bring a Trailer is the OG, but
interesting.
yeah, I didn't realize that. I've got a Supra review going out on the Utopian, I think today while we're doing this, by the way. So the new Supra, I went and drove it up at Lime Rock. I talked about that before. It'll be on my YouTube as well today, so go check that out. Well, whenever you're listening to this. But that's some of our stuff. Check if you want to leave us or let us know what you leave us. Leave us a review or talk to us or just tell us what you think. By the way, friends at themoneylap.com. Send us an email. We try to respond to them all.
Yeah. What about your Supra review?
Well, what about it? It's going to be on the Utopian. It's out today. Basically, the summary of it all is that it's an incredible sports car if it just didn't have the badge Supra on it. That's the problem. People have just tried to be like, well, the Mark IV was amazing, and it's the best thing ever. This could never live up to it because it's shared parts of the BMW, and therefore it's not as cool, blah, blah, blah. And it's like you go drive it, and you're like, this thing's incredible. It's just it has a Supra badge, so people don't want to respect it. But that was basically the synopsis of it all. It also is the greatest manual gearbox I think I've ever driven my entire life, by far. So the video is kind of fun. Hopefully people enjoy the video. We did relate it to some NASCAR stuff, so you will see in the video. But, yeah, that'll be out today. So it took a while to put together.
Do you think people would have liked it more if it was an inline six instead of what it has in there now?
I don't think that's a problem at all. I think the biggest problem is that it's just that they share it. They didn't do it themselves. And so it's to that, to the JDM people that are just obsessed with Japanese cars. It's not a true quote unquote Japanese, sports car. And, because it has too many BMW parts and a BMW engine, so on and so forth. But I don't know. You drive it, you'd never, if you were to be able to strip all that away and you got in it and Toyota was like, yeah, we made this new thing. Now, the interior is very BMW, and it smells like a BMW. I should put that out there. So you would know right away if you've been in BMWs. But if you could take all that away and just sort of drive this car, I don't think you would have known right away. So from the actual driving. And that's what sticks out to me.
Well, if you, the listener, want to get a diecast of Parker's Supra,
no, I don't have a Supra.
No further than nowhere because it doesn't exist. But if you do want a diecast of Parker's Spike Light Cooler's Camaro, from the NASCAR Xfinity Series, number 48, you can go to SpoilerDiecast.com. Any racing enthusiast looking for any high-quality diecast and apparel, look no further than SpoilerDiecast.com, one of the fastest-growing companies in the industry. What sets them apart? Well, let me tell you, Parker. At SpoilerDiecast.com, they pride themselves on exceptional service, which means all orders ship either same or next day, meaning you get your hands on your favorite products in no time. And the best part, they have free shipping on orders over $20, so you can enjoy smooth, affordable shopping experience with SpoilerDiecast.com. They have now over 1,100 unique products currently in stock. That number has gone up. And it is continuing to go up and will continue to go up because they have been expanding. They have been doubling down on NASCAR, doubling down on the collectible diecast industry, which we love and appreciate because we are kids that grew up going to the mall, basically like the basement stores in the malls that had the cheapest rent to buy diecasts. Those don't exist anymore. So now we had this in-between era where there was hard to find a good source for diecasts, right?
Yeah.
And pops up SpoilerDiecast.com. So you can go to their website. Over 1,100 products in stock. They have a brick and mortar store, so they have a physical location now too in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So if you're in Indiana for the races in May, if you live in the Midwest, go check them out. They've got dirt, sprint cars, IndyCar, F1. They're passionate racing fans, so they're constantly growing their offerings. SpoilerDiecast.com.
Wonderful. And you mentioned it. They do have my Spike Light Core Chevy available there. So go check it out. We love our friends at Spoiler Diecast. They're growing along with us, which I mentioned earlier that we've had such a record-setting amount of downloads to all of you listening out there, which has been awesome. Spoiler Diecast. You just, you got to love people investing in the sport, Landon, and trying to provide something, you put it, that we were so nostalgic about when the world tells you everything has to be online, right? It has to be digital, all this stuff. And then sometimes it's just, you got to just do good business, right? For people, for humans. That's what they do. It just feels that way. Do you not agree? No, you're muted. That's why.
I said, absolutely, we love it. But I was muted. And
I was like,
I finished my ad read and I just had to shut down. I had to take a drink of water and shut down after that one.
It was too much after that. It's too much.
Too much for me. Oh, my gosh.
Well, before we go much further, I have to say we are 1 month out from the greatest day in motorsports. And to celebrate this, we have gotten together a Pristine Auction to give away some amazing items surrounding the greatest day in motorsports, right? You have the Monaco Grand Prix, the Coca-Cola, or the Indy 500, and the Coca-Cola 600 all on the same day. So we have a set of things that we are giving away with Pristine Auction to you, the listeners, just for being a part of this podcast. If you want to enter that giveaway, it's at prstn.co/moneylap. You can enter. I've been getting some numbers, by the way. A lot of people have entered. But don't stop, because we are giving away 4 things. A Jeff Gordon signed helmet, who I talked to Jeff Gordon this past weekend, by the way. He told me, big fan of the Money Lap. Thank you, Jeff, if you're listening out there, which you might be.
Nice.
We got one of those. A signed photo by Charles Leclerc. A signed poster by Johnny Rutherford. And a signed Coca-Cola 600 ticket by Dale Earnhardt. So some really cool things that we were able to get on Pristine Auction, and we are giving away to you for just being a great listener. That's prstn.co. Go get in that giveaway. Get a chance to have one of these amazing things. Also, if you are not a winner and you want to go buy great memorabilia on Pristine Auction, then go to just pristineauction.com. Use the code MONEYLAP for $10 off your first win. That's at pristineauction.com. Go check them out. And if you want to enter the giveaway one more time, it's prstn.co/moneylap. We're 1 month out. We will be announcing all those winners after the greatest day in motorsports. So hopefully you guys are one of the winners out there listening.
Awesome.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
We mentioned it. Let's talk NASCAR, Landon. And we start with the Xfinity Series. So my race, obviously had a really fast Spike Light Cooler Chevy. Led some laps, was up front. Stage 1, worked with my Alliance teammates at RCR in terms of Jesse Love and Austin Hill perfectly to plan, where we controlled the front of the field. Got to the last 2 laps where we agreed to race. We did. I finished second in Stage 1, was like, let's go. Pulled down on pit road and didn't have any brakes because of I didn't move my brake valve. That's a long story. So that's interesting stuff. But then got that sorted, so that was nice. Got my brake bias in the right place. And Stage 2 was able to drive back into the top 10 to get some stage points. And then Stage 3 found ourselves fighting for the win late, and it was up front. Austin Hill and I worked awesome together. Great, as like just the best we've ever worked together in terms of, when you're really in sync with someone who's like in a drafting partner position, is when you kind of see them poke out in your mirror, or you kind of do that poke out and they go with you, and you're like, yep, we're in sync, let's go. We were doing that. We were controlling the front of the race, and it came down to 2 to go, turns 3 and 4. He was in the lead. I had a huge run on the top. He goes to block that run. Was already pretty loose as he got in the corner. I sort of faded high to sort of give him that room. As he then continued to come up, we kind of met there right in the middle of the corner, and that spun him out. So
Met there.
We met there. We met at that point. He and I have talked about it. We are on good terms. Neither of us is very angry at all. He was actually going to come on the pod today. He unfortunately couldn't make it, but we were going to have him come on here and talk to us about it. But we were just really excited about how well we worked together the whole time. It was the best we've done at a super speedway. And, the only miss on the whole thing was that we probably had the 2 fastest cars there. And if we had done that correctly and played it correctly, we should have finished 1-2. Just whatever that order is would have been figured out, hopefully, from turn 4 to the start-finish line, right? But with the speed of our cars, we should have had that on lock up front, with being in the position we were would just come to the white flag. So, we both kind of gave one away in that sense. And so, unfortunate. It was a big opportunity for us at Big Machine Racing. I really, really thought we were going to win. I went in there, even woke up that morning, and was like, we'll win a race today. Let's go. Love Talladega. I knew we were going to have a fast car, but hopefully my team can build another one, and we'll have another chance this weekend. But did feel like we let one get away, which hurts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That's I really wanted to get Austin on. Hopefully, we can get him on in the next week or something and talk.
He
about
did agree
it.
to come on in the future, so he said today was too tough, but just couldn't do today. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's another kind of interesting scenario there, where like you're not gonna you're not going to stop your run, and he's not going to not make that block. So what's going to happen there? You know, I like to go back and blame it on the bumpers lining up. We've all heard me talk about that because I think it just allows you to just mash into him and put the ball in his court.
Yep.
And it gives him a chance to take a high risk. It was definitely a high risk block no matter what because of where he was doing it at the end of the straightaway into the corner to kind of make your turn more, you know, basically increasing the load on the tire on inch at that part of the corner. He's put himself in a tight spot. Now he had no choice, right? Because you had to run, but he definitely put himself in a tight spot. So glad you guys are cool.
Yeah, we are, and I think that's why we wanted to have him on, was to talk about the philosophy of super speedway racing in the Xfinity car, and that, you know, you put it right. The bumpers line up. We have the old style cars that you can get big runs, and therefore, you know, the blocks can be. You have to do them. You have to make those aggressive. Like in his position, he has to do that because he's going to try and control the front of the field. In my position, I have to keep my run going because runs are hard to generate. So I don't want to just give up my run. And especially if I can, you know, as he went off the corner and was kind of loose and sort of left the top open a little bit, I faded top because I'm thinking if I can get my nose to the outside, you know, then he's forced a lane down and now I control this outside lane and maybe I keep this momentum going. So,
you know, it's fun,
the
like,
nature of it.
It's fun that we have, I mean, big wrecks are fun to watch and they're great for highlights and replays, and I know the fans like them. And, I mean, sweet wrecks will never not be sweet wrecks, even though people get hurt, and that's not good either. But, like, it sucks right now that when you wreck so many cars, that the end of the race, there's just not enough cars to generate energy, right?
Yep.
And you kind of had that at the end of the Xfinity race a little bit. It was a good finish, though.
Yeah.
But you do run that risk of just when there's only 6 or 8 cars on the track that it looks like something's going to happen, but nothing's going to happen because there's just not enough cars on it to generate energy. I think if you want to get the best finish out of a super speedway, it's with the most cars on track possible, right?
Yeah.
Without having some big wreck.
Well, unless it's the cup race where but we'll get in that in a bit. One thing that was taking cars out towards the end there, and it took us out of the race, essentially, was, and I want your thoughts on this because this is a big topic in the Xfinity Series in the design of our race cars, and that is that we actually stumbled on fuel at the end there. So, you know, this happened to me at Atlanta when I started on the front row for the final restart and basically I just thought I had it won because I knew the 2 was way too low on fuel at that time. We stumbled, the 21 stumbled, but he got hit and it got him going and he was able to win that race. We stumbled and it didn't come back till later. And so after that, I went to work on understanding exactly where the fuel pickup is, how it works, how I can affect how the fuel gets in that fuel pickup. And to explain to people, the fuel pickup is located on the right side of the fuel cell. And basically, that is obviously for us because we're going around ovals all the time, and that's where the centrifugal force will push the fuel over there, right? Well, when you're under caution, it falls away, and especially when you don't have a lot of fuel in there, it can let that box go dry, and if it does, it sucks air. Once it gets an air pocket in there, you won't really know it until you go to slam the throttle, and it stutters or it stumbles. And so that's exactly what happened to me at Talladega, even though we probably had, I think, 3 gallons. To give you an example of who else it happened to, the 8 car actually ran out of fuel, you know, quote unquote, ran out, although they had 2.5 gallons in their car. The 43, Ryan Ellis, was texting me. He said he had 1.8 gallons in his car, and he ran out. Like, the car stopped running. So it's a really difficult thing where you see us running on the flat, we're weaving, we're trying to, and, like, I did every single thing I knew over that caution because I knew we were in a tight fuel spot. And so I never ran the car unless I was on the flat, turning left, loading up that fuel on the right side. I did that same thing all the way to coming to the restart zone. And even in the restart zone, if you look, I fade right and turn left down to try and force more fuel to the right side. And yet, as we got towards the end of second gear and into third, it started to stumble. And it was like, you know, that's when Jesse was able to run into me so hard he moved me out. And then that caused the 11, 18 to get into each other. And then right reared us.
So what's actually happening? Did you guys figure it out, or have you talked to your team?
I think we're working on it. So we're dissecting and trying to understand. But I think, we're not the only ones, right? The 8 from Junior Motorsports, the 43 from Alpha Prime. I mean, this is a thing with this design of this race car. I think some of it could be just to mandate a left side fuel pickup. Like, now I don't know what the cost would be and all that, obviously, but I think that's something NASCAR could do to stop all this, right? Because
don't we run them in road courses?
So I think we do. Yeah. So maybe you could just, boom, mandate it. Just be done with it. Because it just seems like this is happening, and you look at Atlanta, the way that race is designed, you're always going to be in a tight fuel spot from where the third stage is. These Superspeedways, you're always going to be in a tight fuel spot because of the way the stages are, especially with overtime. And so you're trying to pick up that fuel. So
it seems like it makes sense to do something like that because you're not actually running out of fuel anyways. So, it's not like you didn't mismanage your fuel mileage.
No. So it's just kind of crazy, but it's been the talk of the Xfinity Series this week, I would say, is how you're managing your fuel and putting it in that pickup. And, for example, the 2 car, I think was basically, I don't know exactly, but I would assume was on fumes when he got to the line there. And, that was somehow they were able to pick it all up. So it's
what is the second fuel pump switch that we always have? The reserve switch.
We don't have that in the Xfinity Series. That was in the Cup. In the Cup Series, you have that, and I believe it's a secondary box. It's like a reserve box that holds a set amount of fuel in it that can't slide. It can't come out, I guess, right? We're testing my knowledge here. We should have probably brought someone far smarter. And therefore, like, if you flip that reserve switch, it just has a set amount of fuel that's sat in there that you can run on, basically. And I think it gives you, like a lap and a half some places.
Well, I love that we bragged about how many Cup starts I have. I actually don't know how that works either, other than I know there's a switch on the dash, and when you switch it up, you get about 2 laps of fuel, and that's it. Less than that.
So maybe we need that. Maybe that's the fix. I don't know.
So, yeah, just get one of those switches. I don't know. That's what you need to do. You just get one of those switches. You can.
That's
I'm sure. Yeah, it's just a switch.
Just a switch.
Just switch it up.
Put a switch in the car.
Yeah, just put a switch up there. It's just a switch.
You don't have to connect anything. You don't have to connect it to anything.
You just flip it up and it's another lap. Like, problem solved.
Deal. God, why did we not think of that?
What?
I'm going to text him right now. Hey, figured it out. Landon says we just need to put a switch in the car.
Yeah, Landon said he always had one.
Hey, guys, I'd love to see you at a debrief meeting. It's like all these really serious faces and serious
engineers
happening. Yeah, engineers. And you're just like, hey, guys, what about just putting a switch in there?
Yeah, just put a switch.
Have you thought of that?
Yeah, you can like put a little number 2 on it, because I always used to know that, like, which one was number 1, number 2. You're good to go. Rock and roll.
Solved. God, this is so easy. Well, you know what? Moving on. I don't even know what else we have to talk about there. It's solved. Thank you, Landon, for solving the entirety of the Xfinity Series. Hey, one last thing. Shout out to a certain driver in the Xfinity Series, SVG. First race this year was Daytona. He was a menace in the draft. I'll be honest. Guy was running at everyone. Couldn't time the checkups. He hit me so hard down the backstretch one time when the field checked up, he about wrecked me, and I was like, dude, stop. And I've talked to Shane a ton through this season because I found it fascinating as he's jumped into this and just, what he's been doing. And I will say, this past weekend, though, at Talladega, he was on it. Never, was making the right moves, made good moves, got to the lead, I think, one time. He picked it up quick. That's all I wanted to say. So,
nice.
Guy's on it. Yeah. Pretty cool. That's our Xfinity Series stuff. If you like that, let us know, please. Let's talk the Cup Series, Landon. Tyler Reddick wins in a sort of crazy last trial area of the lap where Michael McDowell, who dominated the last stage, makes a big block on Keselowski to the outside, makes the same block down to the bottom, loses it. Keselowski, obviously hits into him. That slows his momentum and allows Tyler Reddick to come around the outside and win the race. That was the weirdest third stage I think I've watched in a while.
It was interesting. I was very impressed with McDowell's, how he led that race. He did a phenomenal job. I do think that Reddick did something over the course of those last 20 laps that we do not see very often lately. And let me start this analysis with a question, Parker. in those Cup cars, where do you think you want to be in the closing stage of the race?
The lead of one of the lines.
The lead, right?
Yep.
And Tyler was leading that outside line, and he was so committed to that outside line that even when he had multiple opportunities within the last 20, really even the last 5 and 10 laps of the race, and you're going to have to check my homework on it, my honesty here. I would have to actually rewatch the last 10 laps to figure out exactly when he had his final opportunities. He had multiple opportunities in the closing laps of that race to clear himself in front of McDowell and him be the control car, right? Because think about it this way. Think of it like using our restart terms, right? McDowell was the control car, and he was leading the inside line, and he was the one controlling the inside and outside lanes. And Reddick had multiple opportunities to become the control car, and he didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't entirely figure out why. I think part of it, you could say, okay, teammates, right? He had Toyotas behind him. But even, as the control car, McDowell was able to keep the Fords pushing him, right? He would just hop between lanes. But it's almost like Reddick was smart enough to know that if he made himself the control car from the outside lane, it would have disrupted all the energy behind him, right? It would have shifted the outside lane up forward. It would have created gaps in the field, which would have then created checkups. And the third groove was trying to make some hay, and at times when it appeared that it was going to, right? I think Chase Elliott was making a run, SVG was making a run. They weren't able to complete their runs and get all the way to the first, second, and third rows because the outside lane was just so uniform and so organized. And it's almost like, I don't know if this was Reddick's thinking, but it's almost like because Reddick did not clear himself and did not start lane hopping, he just stayed organized. It prevented all this chaos from happening behind him, which ultimately would have created more of a challenge for him. Right? Mm-hmm. Instead, he just showed patience. 5, 4, 3, 2 laps to go, 1 lap to go. Right? And like, he put himself in position to not necessarily take the win, but to win the race by accident. Did that come out wrong, or does that make sense?
I'm a little confused.
He didn't have to make a move to win the race.
Okay.
He just had to be there. Right? And like,
kind of the old Justin Haley theory. Just don't do anything.
Yeah, it was just like, and I've actually studied races with him before. I've prepared for Superspeedway races with him before when we were both Chevy drivers. And that's a legitimate strategy at Talladega that I know that he's heard before. Like, we've talked about that.
Him or Tyler Reddick?
Tyler Reddick.
Really?
Well, both drivers, but Tyler Reddick specifically. Like, I've been in pre-race. Yep. I've done pre-race meetings with him before and talked about these strategies before. And I wonder if that was his thinking. It's just like, you know what? I'm right where I need to be. I'm leading a lane, right? I'm not the leader, right? I'm not the control car because the 34 is on the inside. He's the control car. He's the one that's advancing and then moving between lanes. But I'm okay with where I'm at, right? As long as I keep myself leading this lane and I'm not going to disrupt the energy, right? I'm not going to swap lanes. I'm not going to create chaos, because chaos is what creates 3 wide moments. And then at the end of the day, he could end up pulling the parachute, right? And so he just said, hey, I'm just going to stay right here in this lane until the very end. And I'll be damned, he won the race. Like, you know, and the funny thing is, like, you can zoom all the way in on that last straightaway and say, yeah, but, you know, look at all these moves, and McDowell was about to win it, and Keselowski, even if McDowell didn't win it, Keselowski was the one making the move to win, and then there was a big wreck. It was like, yeah, okay, but he still won.
Yeah, he never did anything.
Right? Like, he didn't do anything. He just stayed right there, and he won the race.
Won the race. Ah, that is smart. Damn.
It's something that I just... You know, I was watching in those last 10 laps, and I'm like, gosh, he's not clearing himself. I know that I would have cleared myself if I were in his position. I was texting it to you and Joey.
Yeah.
Like, why
he had
has
Martin
he cleared
Truex
himself
behind him the whole time, and it just worked.
why didn't he take control? He wouldn't take control, and I'm like, I don't know. Maybe he's doing the right thing. And like I said, now we're watching. Thank you, Josh, for pulling it up. I'm watching the last, coming to the checkers. It's just like, oh, well, he won. So,
so it was that easy. Got it. Don't do anything.
Yeah, you mentioned Justin Haley. Go ahead.
Well, I said this. I wasn't making fun of Justin Haley. It's just it was a funny thing that he's one of a few Superspeedway races in Xfinity, and has obviously been up front in Cup races before. And one of the things that you pointed out to me and other people pointed out was just sort of this idea that he didn't really make moves. Like, you could track him running the bottom lane for an entire third stage and never made a move out of that bottom lane. And eventually the lead comes to him, and then it just sort of like was in the winning spot, and bam, he won the race. And he said to me one time, usually I just don't make any move at all. He goes, I just don't do anything. I just sit there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you're right. So, sometimes the best move is no move at all. And I think that really was the winning move, is to do nothing. And you're right.
Yeah.
So he put himself in the position to have the opportunity that if he did nothing, the race could come to him, and it did. And maybe that was his. And, some of his thinking might be, if he clears himself to the bottom there, that's a row of Fords that he clears himself in front of. Are they going to try and shuck him out, right? And instead he had friendly people behind him in terms of Martin Truex Jr. And I think there was another Toyota there at one point. And so it's sort of like, why
move?
Just stay here. Don't make a difference.
Yeah.
So
that strategy in this that was my strategy in 2022. It's been my strategy several times at Talladega. It's not the strategy, but it is a strategy, and the strategy is this. It is very simple. It is to take the short way around the track, which he was in the second lane. But I'm sort of talking about myself. My strategy at Talladega is generally take the shortest way around the track, right? The bottom is your friend, and make minimal moves, right? And just chug along, grind it out on the bottom, and let everybody else make bad moves.
Yep.
Right? And let that be your way to advance through the field. And that was my strategy, but for both Talladega races, when I drove the 10 car, I had top fives in both of them, had a shot at winning both of those races. And I felt like that was a very solid strategy where I didn't work that hard all day. I just was smart, patient, and what I saw those last 20 laps out of Reddick was exactly that, except from the second lane. And I was impressed. And it was like, I wanted McDowell to win because I was like, damn, this is cool. He's doing a phenomenal job. I wanted Keselowski to win because I picked him to win, and I think Keselowski is one of the best Talladega drivers out there right now. But then in the last 20 laps of the race, and I was watching Reddick, I'm like, okay, I love what he's doing here, and it was pretty cool that he won.
It was great. It was great. One thing to point out that I did say it was an odd third stage. This overall an odd race, and I'm sure a lot of people out there, if you're listening to this podcast, have heard a lot of conjecture about this. The idea that they're all, running these lanes, saving fuel, like in that first stage, the second stage, and they're running 5-6 seconds off the pace, and it's just weird strategy of, run in the pack, save as much fuel as possible, and then you'll leapfrog everyone in the pit stop with a shorter pit road time, and that will give you the best chance of scoring points at the end of the stage. And the cars that go full out can't get away from the pack, so it's just sort of like this stuck zone. What the fixes are for that, I have no idea. I heard some people say shorten the race and that sort of thing. Absolutely do not shorten the race. That's the stupidest thing to me is whenever people say shorten the race or ever, because I'm like, okay, so if it was so good, why would we make it shorter? It means makes the product make the product better. Don't give up time that you can be exposing your product to a large audience. That's just a surefire way to not be successful. So I would say that's not the way. I don't know what they have to do, but it is odd that has become the dominant strategy in those stages, which leads to the third stage where they run in this line because these cars, it seems like, just cannot get that third groove going. And so they run this 2x2 line. The leader has a ton of controls. We saw with McDowell. And it's a very much a lockstep sort of, they're stuck in a lot of ways in where they are. I think that's probably the biggest gripe I have with this package at the moment. And I don't know what they do to fix it, other than it just seems like whatever, the horsepower is probably the most horsepower they've had at a Superspeedway ever probably nowadays. There's ginormous amount of drag on these cars. I don't know. I think something's up, something's wrong, because you can't get a third lane rolling at Talladega. To me, says, okay, this package needs adjustment. There's a problem there.
So I'll address both of those, and then we can move on.
Thank you. Please
the first one, the fuel thing, I think I'm going to oversimplify it and just blame stage brakes. And I think that what we're seeing now is an evolution of the race teams learning the stages. They have more control and ability than ever to program these engines, to tune up these engines to maximize their horsepower, their fuel efficiency, to strategize that with essentially known cautions, right?
Yep.
And so, and it's very low variables when these stage brakes are pretty much, there's only one fuel stop between them. So I just think that there's a lot of there's a lot of variables that have been taken out of the race strategy by having known cautions with stage brakes, and then with the engines and the technology and how smart these teams are, I think they've been able to maximize it and evolve over the years to ultimately the end product that we have, right? Where they've determined that saving, having an engine that's designed to run, be able to have this certain fuel economy if you run at this certain throttle percentage for a period of time for basically 90% of the race is optimal. Right, for the whole strategy. So, and I'm just simply gonna blame stage brakes for that. I don't think there's necessarily anything mechanical that could fix that. Maybe short term fix that. I think something mechanical, something in the rules or the engine rules or whatever NASCAR could do to eliminate that. But ultimately, the teams are gonna adapt as long as they have known cautions. They're gonna adapt, right? Yep. And so you get rid of stage brakes, and now you create a ton of variability. We don't know when the cautions are going to be. Yeah, there still might be fuel saving. But I think it would the variability and the unpredictability in the race is what would prevent the teams from taking advantage of it the way they have. I don't know if you want to respond to that or.
Well, I agree with you. It has to be something like that, because this is just for it to be discovered that you could be going this slow and it all makes out math-wise, right? And this is the strategy. It really started because one team figured it out, and then everyone else discovered it, and then it was like, well,
it's not by accident.
It's not by accident. No, it just happened.
It's right. It's not by accident. It's because the teams figure
things
out.
So
they adapt
just go green.
Go green. They adapt to the thing. So yeah. So the other thing on the third lane, I might oversimplify that too, but I'm going to say. To me, the third lane in the Cup cars is lacking because those cars, we talked in previous episodes in the last couple of weeks, and we were talking about it in a completely different context because I think we were talking about intermediate racing. But those cars still punch a big hole in the air because they're big car, right? They're stock cars. They're big and boxy. But they're way more efficient than anything we've ever had with the diffuser underneath, the underbody Aero, and the air attaches to those cars better than any stock car has, any NASCAR stock car has, right? So it creates this really small wake in this really concentrated pocket of air where there's turbulence. And then, it's really just feet off of the car. Small, like not even feet, inches off of the car where there's almost no turbulence at all. It's clean air, right? Which is why at intermediate tracks, we see great racing where people can pop out only just a couple feet outside of the other driver, and they have clean air, right? They can pull up side by side, and we see guys racing side by side at tracks like Las Vegas, right?
Yep.
Where that's almost impossible to do even in the Xfinity car, because the Xfinity car punches such a big wake, right? Think of a boat, right? So, in terms of wake, the Cup car is a canoe as opposed to a truck or an Xfinity car, which is a wakeboarding boat, right? That's designed to create a big wake. So in my opinion, the cars just don't make a big enough wake to really make the outside groove have some kind of turbulence to make a draft for that lead car. Because you're at a track like Talladega, you have a ton of distance to make up for if you're running up against the wall versus the guy that's running on the bottom. It's like over half a second a lap. Right? That's what, 3-4 car lengths maybe a
Yeah.
lap just in free speed because of distance, right? You have to make that distance up somehow. So you have to make it up in aero horsepower. Well, if those cars aren't creating this big hole in the air and it going as wide as the third groove, if the cars really have this tight little, well attached air, super efficient aero like they do, the third groove is cleaner, calmer air. And at a super speedway, at an intermediate track, that means downforce, but at a super speedway, that means drag.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so I think that it's just made it a little bit tougher than that outside groove car to lead the way, to lead the charge, and take that extra distance and find another half a second worth of speed to be able to close the gap on the field. The other thing, too, that's maybe a big factor in that is when they're not making moves, and they're not, remember what I was talking about, Tyler Reddick, right?
Yep.
When you don't have a guy up front like Tyler Reddick making moves back and forth, causing confusion, keeping that line organized, then you don't have this just surging and checking up and surging and checking up. And ultimately that surging and checking up is also what brings the third groove into play. So, I
you're
think
actually 100% right, because if you think about in the draft, like in the Xfinity car, when we're running those lines, all I'm looking for is, or if I'm stuck sort of further back as I was trying to make my way through stage 2, I'm looking for confusion. Someone cause confusion.
Yep.
Because when I start to see confusion happening, especially at the front, that means one of these lanes is going to move. I'm in the right lane.
Opportunity.
Boom, here we go. Opportunity, right? If it's lockstep and no one's making those
Can't do
moves to
anything.
slow a lane up or speed one up or that's vice versa, nothing happens. It's a great point.
Yep.
Confusion.
So I think that, and that goes back to all the way back to my conversation about Tyler Reddick. If I didn't harp on it enough or get my point across, I almost think that is the genius in what Tyler Reddick was doing. And that's why he won the race. Even though it looks like he won it by accident.
Yep.
Right? With Brad Keselowski and Michael McDowell, and there's a big wreck, and he just popped out the other end, right? Even though it looks like he won it by accident. He won that race for himself for those last 20 laps because he did not disrupt the field.
Yep.
He kept the field in order. He kept the pace in order. And it kept the third lane from having an influence. Right?
It's well done. It's well done. So you're saying it wasn't the Zin pouches.
So that was the other thing we want to talk about is the Zin pouches. I think all of that said, obviously, if anybody watched the show and saw some in-car camera footage, you could see that Tyler was packing a Zin in his side pocket. And all of this conversation is to say that Tyler was clearly focused and locked in with the big picture. He was driving the car from the blimp and could see everything.
Everything. His brain was at a whole nother level. So can we just talk? We need to dive into this for a second. I mentioned the top. So this is a trend happening for all our listeners out there. There are numerous NASCAR drivers. I'm not going to name names. I don't want them out there. That are
We'll name Tyler Reddick because
it's very visible in his car.
Because it was on TV.
Yeah, it's very visible. But there's numerous drivers that are racing with Zins in their mouth. And there's, thought processes. I do know there is a scientific backing to the fact that nicotine can be a focus helper. It's sort of like a stimulant, just like caffeine. It's no different. And it can help you focus and that sort of thing. It's become so prevalent. Last year, I tried it in the simulator. I was like, okay, I've had Zins before. Sure, I've tried them. Definitely. I like nicotine. I've had, bouts with different nicotine devices at times. Not afraid to admit it. Just something I've tried for sure. It's definitely a very popular thing. Well, I never thought about for the race car, but I was like seeing all this happening. I see all these drivers, utilizing it, and I'm like, okay, I'll try it in the simulator. I didn't think I felt anything. I was like, I don't know. I think my throat's a little dry, and yeah, I feel like when I have a Zin, which is it sometimes can keep you up. Now I will say, long drives, like if I'm on a long drive, I'm kind of getting a little tired or weary. I will get Zins. Boom, I'm back. There's a definite stimulant to them. Bam, I feel like I can drive the rest of the way. But after Bristol last year, I did that exact thing. I literally was tired. I was like not going to do another energy drink. And I stopped, got Zins, put one of those in, bam, drove all the way home, no problem. Felt super awake. So, I mean, there's, and this is, nicotine is completely, it's legal, right? Whatever, there's no reason that in that sense. And so I just think this is fascinating. And it's something that's a trend right now that no one's talking about. And, Kyle Busch is sponsored by Zone, which I believe is a Zyn competitor. But it's fascinating to me. And you think back to, like, Dick Trickle smoking cigarettes in the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day. And you're like, what was he doing? I don't know. Maybe he had the secret, Yeah. We never saw vapes in the car. That didn't, during the Juul phase, that didn't really take off. But the reason this came up is I had another driver text me and who does use Zyns and just be like, look, it's getting more popular. And I'm like, this is hilarious. What is happening right now? So we're not condoning it. I'm just saying, if you're under 18, I believe you have to be 18 to get these. Don't think like this is a condoning of utilizing nicotine, that sort of thing. It's very addictive, but there's something happening here that I just think is happening too often and around me to ignore. And I don't know. We'll see where it goes. I haven't tried a real car though. I'd love to try to test. I love it, but I've never done a real car.
I have never tried Zyn at all, so I'm probably just went
Zyn
super
Zero.
uncool. I'm Zyn Zero. I'm probably super uncool now to all of the Gen Z listeners and fans out there.
They are popular.
But
you go to any bar these days, by the way, and you can walk up to almost any male under the age of 38 and be like, "Yo, can I get this in?" It's like, "Yep, done. Here you go."
Yeah, I've never tried it, but I do know several drivers that use it. I've talked to them about it before. They do it in the car. They are comfortable with it. They know their bodies and they know how they react to it, so they time when they take it before the race and during the race.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It also is, not just exclusive to racing because it's literally a thing. I've seen memes on Instagram of golfers taking them mid-round, other athletes taking it. So that's
something there.
It's interesting.
Nicotine, Zyns. It could be the power. It's what I was missing on Saturday. I needed the Zyn pouch. We'll move on for that. One thing I wasn't able to see was my running order because scoring pylons were removed. The scoring pylons were removed from Talladega, just like Texas. This is a trend, something everyone's talking about. Landon, you're on a new theory. You don't think the scoring pylons were ever actually there, and this is gaslighting the whole place.
Everybody's talking about scoring pylons at Talladega in Texas, and I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never seen a scoring pylon at Talladega. I don't like. Are you talking about one like the one at Indy?
Yeah, they were.
Like they had one there.
They were at the end of pit road at both places.
No,
yeah.
they have big screens.
No, they had.
There's a big screen at the end of pit road. There's a big screen right at the end of pit road. Right across from the start-finish line, there is it used to be a Sprint Vision, and now I don't know what they call them now, but there's big screens.
But they had scoring pylons. The one in Talladega was actually further in the middle, I want to say.
No, they
towards
didn't.
like where the road course was. Yeah, because I remember seeing my number up there.
No,
when I won.
Why would you have some random scoring pylon? That's like the only reason Indy. I guess Kansas has one. I think
they all had them because you can't see. So the big screens you can't see running. They don't show the full running order, or it's going by too quick. So I never see it.
I think you guys. I
use scoring pylons almost every week. I'm looking for the scoring pylon in the middle of the race.
You guys are mistaken. There was never a scoring pylon at Talladega.
Well, you know what? You're crazy, and we're all right, and you're insane. We got to give a shout out to an unfortunate thing that occurred out of Talladega. Erik Jones is out with a fracture in his back. Had a horrific wreck there when the Toyotas had won up the whole field. Strategy-wise, by the way, which I think has been swept on the rug because of this whole thing. They had the field covered by a gargantuan amount, probably, the speed they were running in their little pack. They get in a wreck. Erik Jones goes head on the wall in turns 3 and 4, and now is out of Dover with a back fracture. So, really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a shame. I feel bad. My heart was broken when I heard the audio and saw that. I really hope him wish for a speedy recovery from Erik. Seemed like just a horrible unforced error as well.
Yes.
That whole strategy. That was really weird the way that happened. You don't see that too often. Just a total blunder, but
that's a good way to put it. Total blunder. and unfortunate for Erik, he gets him injured. So just overall not not the way they want it to play out. But wishing him a speedy recovery. We'll see when he can get back. And hopefully, it'll be soon. So it was announced that for the All-Star race, they're going to be trying different tire compounds once again. We saw this a couple years ago. It sounds like the option tire is basically the same compound as the rain tire, just without treading. So they've listened. They've listened to us. The rain tire compound could be in the future what we're running. I think it's a test. We'll see if it works, which I love.
I'm interested in that. When is that race?
That would be the 18th weekend, May 18th.
Okay.
I want to say.
Yeah,
Same as the Indy Pole Day.
Forward to that. I did text with a Cup driver yesterday and asked them about it, and they said that it's 2 to 3 tenths faster for 15 laps.
Wow.
And I don't think that's enough, but I don't know. It will be interesting. The fall off on it is going to be interesting, and I think that's probably what we're more needing to focus on is what that tire looks like after 50 laps, and how long those teams are going to have to live with those tires. So
Got it.
The teams are going to have to strategize, I would imagine. I don't know how many sets they're getting for each. I think NASCAR's probably already said, and I just didn't pay attention. But
two apiece.
2 sets each. And how long is the race?
Oh, let me find that out for you. It's May 19th, by the way.
It's a couple hundred laps. You would think that they're just going to save a set for the very end.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, I'm more to just see what the wear is and like what those numbers look like and how it changes things. So we'll see.
it's cool that they're going as extreme as that compound.
I love it. Let's do it.
tire.
It's awesome. I don't think we've discussed it ad nauseum on this podcast. If you want to know more about tires and tire wear, you can listen to those. But I think it's awesome. Let's do it. But we got to shift to IndyCar, and because some gargantuan news dropped this today, here Wednesday, April 24th, in that we mentioned at the top, the Team Penske cars were found to have had push-to-pass available to them when they shouldn't have. And this is big because they won the first race of the season. They've had that stripped away from them, and essentially they had this massive advantage of being able to use push-to-pass when they wanted. So I reached out to a buddy of mine.
Nuts.
His name's Bob Perona. He's one of the most world-renowned driver coaches in all of IndyCar. He's coached most of the winners you've ever seen in IndyCar. He's been a part of numerous teams. He's hopefully going to come on here and just tell us real quick about what this means and what where they were able to use these push-to-pass and how it got discovered. I think is the craziest thing that I saw. In that, I believe they found it because they were not all the teams weren't able to use it in warm-up or something, and the Penske cars were at Long Beach. So Bob should be heading on here. We'll see if he can get in through we're trying to give him the link, get him on the pod. Bob was my driver coach for many years. Worked with him since I was about 16. He has coached all sorts of different Indy 500 winners and IndyCar winners. So, and his driver coaching, we will have him on here sometimes to talk driver coaching, but when I saw this, I was like, I know the guy that will know something about this. But we don't know if he can get through technology here. So stand by with us.
Speaking of technology, this sounds I'm just basing off of Tim Cindric, the president, Team Penske president. His quote, he's saying that unfortunately the push-to-pass software was not removed as it should have been following recently completed hybrid testing in the Team Penske Indy cars. So that's interesting that they didn't disable this technology or didn't they're running some different software from a test from the hybrid software in the ECU, I suppose. How that stuff is typically not done on accident, although Tim's quotes were very classy, and as any Hendrick Penske quote would be, that unfortunately was not removed. Doesn't really say it was an accident. Doesn't really say it was they overlooked it. Yep. Doesn't admit to wrongdoing, although Penske doesn't typically shine well internally on cheating allegations, or cheating within themselves, right?
Yep.
That's not the Penske way of doing things. And this, in terms of cheating, this is cheating of all cheating, right? If we want to talk about motorsports bending the rules versus, showing up with illegal fuel, well, this is more along the lines of hogging out your restrictor plates.
They have to have known what they were doing, though. Like that's you can't just say that you didn't know it because it's a button you have to push, and you drivers know when push to pass is supposed to be available. No,
I'm pretty sure the drivers know exactly how much push to pass is left and everything,
and they would feel it. They would definitely feel it. So, I appreciate the excuse. I always think there's a well written and come up, well put together excuse, but this seems too blatant to me, and that you would have known it was there, right? And so it's just that I think they got caught. They got caught doing something they shouldn't have, and maybe they tried to use it very sparingly so that it was just in little moments that you needed it. But it's you had it even if you didn't use it, and just like when the Formula E stuff went down the other week, with the throttle spring, it's illegal. It's illegal, right? So we are going to strike out on guest here once again. Bob can't join. He can't get the app to work where he's at. So we've struck out on 2 guests in this episode. Thanks for following along with us. We are a podcast that can not have invited people come on. We're the only one in America. So we will try next time to have Bob, and sometime we'll talk driver coaching and what drivers, what he's seen in terms of how driver preparation, all that's happened in the years. But with that,
well, we can talk about a series where there is absolutely nothing nefarious going on, and everything is always in the up and up.
Which one would that be?
And I wish there was something more interesting going on in F1 right now, but it's just not.
There isn't. So, sprint qualifying was epic this past weekend. Really enjoyed that, except for they ruined it all in the end with just the most ridiculous ruling I've ever seen, besides the fact that track limits are ridiculous. They have this rain, rain hits in qualifying 3. It becomes this awesome battle of who can rise to the grip level appropriately, and the lap times are dropping by seconds at a moment as they start to figure it out, and Fernando Alonso goes to the top at one point. And then we get to the end of qualifying, and Norris had gone faster, but then gets his time removed because he had gone off past the track limits of the final corner, which could, give you a run into the next lap. And therefore, that part of their track limit rules is that is a infraction. Now, apparently, they didn't have that for this circuit because they had added gravel there. But which then just, once again, continues to show me how stupid these track limits are. This idea that these white lines are the areas that are and are not track. But we can go past that. They give him his lap back, which hands him the pole. And it was just like, this is the most ridiculous thing. You had one of the most exciting qualifying sessions, and you just ruined it with track limits. Track limits. It's never better. There's never a time where somebody was watching that and was like, oh, thank you, because I didn't want the payoff of this awesome qualifying lap and the finish. No, I wanted somebody in a white button down with 50 screens looking at this thing and saying, actually, you can have your lap back. How is that a payoff? Who's excited about that? And so it just set the stupidest tone for this. Anyway.
It's like they did it just to screw with you, because they're like, not only are we going to bring track limits into the discussion, we're going to unwind our call.
I invested, whatever amount of time, and 45 minutes, an hour of my life into this series, and gave them my eyeballs and was excited about it and was enjoying the product. And then they just found in one fellow swoop a way to rip it apart, destroy it, and take all the goodwill away. And you know what I didn't do? I then chose to very sparingly watch the rest of the weekend, and I'm glad I did, because it was total So, you know what? F1, you get what you deserved.
Did you think to write like a mean tweet or anything like that?
I kind of did. I got in a little fight with Will Buxton again on Twitter. But I was
at least you did that.
I was taking off to Talladega, so I couldn't get deep into it. But yeah, he spouted off, but I made it very well known that I felt track limits were stupid. So, once again, imagine that qualifying session. What if they just said, hey, you know what? It's raining, it's downpouring, no track limits. Who cares? It's white lines, the stupidest thing ever. How awesome would it have been? It would have been amazing. And I thought about that track, and I looked at it, and I looked at that final corner, and I said, you know, there would be way more passing in this series if you didn't have track limits. A ton more passing. It would be epic. People wouldn't even know what to do with themselves. But instead, let's get a train of cars in between two white lines. That's what we all want to see. Oh.
It would be fun. It would be fun if F1 was like, hey, our American ratings are dwindling. We're losing the interest of our American fan base. We've been listening to this podcast of these two goobers called The Money Lap. And I think they have a good idea. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pick one race a year where we just let the track be the canvas. And at the end of the day, here's the start line, and it's the finish line, and you just got to get it back around as quick as you can. We don't really care how you do it.
Yep.
Go through the infield, take the chicanes, take the non-chicane.
Sign me up.
We'll put concrete barriers where we don't want you to go, and you guys figure it out.
Good luck.
There. Just to appease these hillbilly Americans and maybe generate some American interest again.
And maybe they'll all get done and say that was the best damn race I've ever seen. What have we been doing for the last 5 years of this stupid track limit stuff? Stop it. Move on. Let the tracks be raced the way they build them, and let the racers race, because you got the potential for a good product there. Right now, you're just not. You're constraining it into such a tight space that it can't even let it. You can't let it fly. And you know what? I don't want to sound like such a downer about F1, but I did text at one point, and I said, you know, when I was sitting in the lounge Sunday leaving Talladega with a bit of a hangover, and I was sitting there, and I was like watching this golf tournament happen. Everyone else is watching, and I went and I'm watching on my iPad the F1 race, and I literally just turned the F1 race off. I'm just like, I don't even care. I don't care. I didn't care. And I hate it because I've loved it so much for so much of my life, and there I just sat and thought, I don't know why, I just didn't care. So
maybe the money lap has not been good for your love for F1. Like, I've just given you a platform to be angry about F1.
just pissed all the time. You know who's not angry about it? Ferrari announced a multi-year deal with Hewlett-Packard. Remember HP? Hey, still out there. I guess that's why they're doing this. With the team now being called Scuderia Ferrari HP from the Miami GP onwards. So they just got that bag. Good for them.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I bet that money is ginormous, by the way.
How much does it cost? How much does it cost to get your name on the Ferrari F1 team?
To be the title, the only ones that were before this have been Shell. And before, you know, even back to like 2001, you had Shell, FedEx that shared the side pod. Marlboro was always there, right? Basically, even when they weren't allowed to be there up into the mid-2000s, it said, you know, the barcode style stuff. And then it went to the Mission Win Now, which was just Marlboro. Like, they have always just been the highest amount. And, you know, those cars have been red forever. So I saw some reports saying this puts it in the Oracle deal for Red Bull, which I believe was, Josh, you can correct me on this, was $100 million or something.
I mean, I don't know the validation of this quote, but someone's saying anywhere from $80 to $100 million annually.
I'd assume $100 million. I would say there's no way Ferrari, being the brand it is, lets anyone align with them for multi-year under $100 million a year. There's no way. So just gargantuan money. It's unfortunate because no one's watching anymore. So good luck with that. Might miss the boat. They are talking about this to try and spice it up. You remember when the playoffs expanded in NASCAR from 10, then it was 12, then 16, right? Mm-hmm. They're now talking about expanding the points to 12.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, they ought to. Just let them do it.
Yeah, so some are very upset about this. I actually don't have a major opinion. I think if you want to do it, it's fine. Why not? Like, okay, it just makes 12th more exciting than 10th. Like, and it's maybe for Haas and your Williams, it's a more attainable time to get points, and so they actually have something on the board, as opposed to those seasons. If you remember a couple years ago, when you had Marussia and these, just totally way of the back teams that had never had a chance of being in the top 10, they were, you would get to the end of the season and it was like the highest finishing position one time, but they didn't get a point for it. It was like, they all had 0 points, but these guys had the highest finishing position or something. It was really weird. So I think anytime you can just make it very simple that, hey, this team scored 1 point, this team scored no points, that's a better solution. So anyway, makes it easier. I do think of all the changes. That's one. Why not? No brainer. Do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, Josh. Maybe.
Although it is a big. I mean, it's a well celebrated thing in F1 for a team to just simply score points.
Yeah, but I don't know if that changes because, you've moved 2 spots, so it's 20% easier.
Right.
Does that really change it that much? By the way, I laughed. Oh, Josh,
just something to talk about.
He said maybe Logan Sargent can get a point now. Josh, those were not my words.
My gosh.
Not my words. Oh man.
Well, man,
this has been a fun episode, my man. We, through all our attempts and failing to get guests on here, we have failed miserably. And one that we've always wanted to have on since we started this damn podcast, Landon, is Kyle Busch. But he also couldn't connect. So we're going to have to try again next week. That's it for the Money Lap. Thanks for listening. Peace. Thanks for listening to the Money Lap. As always, check out themoneylap.com for the best 5 minutes in motorsports, or sometimes just the coolest stuff in motorsports, delivered directly to your inbox 3 times a week. Check us out on YouTube. We're growing fast over there. And, of course, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. We're all over the internet. We're spreading the word of how cool motorsports is. Check us out.